Hello, everyone. Hello, friends of the heart. This is Travel Light Conversations with Friends of the Heart. This inspiration came to me like a week ago. I've been doing these conversations with Hungarian friends, and I was very happy when it showed up. And one of the first persons who jumped into my mind was Clare Jackson. So I invited her uh, to talk about spirituality, our path, and anything that shows up with trust during the conversation. So, very happy to be here and I welcome you. And I'm so honored that you said yes to my invitation. Hello, Claire.
Hi, it's wonderful to be with you. I'm always happy to join with you. It's funny how you show up at these beautiful, special, uh, like unexpected times. I go, ah, there's Alexandria. That's what this felt like, just a spontaneous, perfect flow.
Like a synchronicity, because you mentioned that you started to open up to something like this.
I did. I finally am feeling this, for lack of a better word, like time to get naked, right? It's time to really show what my journey has been, what I'm experiencing now, even things that are really difficult to talk about, things that I've been scared to talk about. A lot of times in my work, we would call it, this fear of persecution or fear of being crucified for what we've experienced. And we discover that these things are inside, and that's what's coming forward. Is I don't want to give power to that fear anymore, to be seen and reflect the truth that I feel from within.
Right. And Yeshua mentioned so many times that expression that it's time to take up the cloak of responsibility and I felt so many times that God, it feels like I'm wearing a cloak of invisibility, responsibility, like a sense of protection, and don't really know how to take it off. But we definitely can follow the sparks in the heart, and it doesn't feel like, oh, I want to work on this project of taking off this invisibility cloak. It feels more like play if we follow these sparks, and there's a sense of safety in it. So I hope you feel that too, now that we
I
are.
I do. I feel it's such a mirror, right? What I'm experiencing out in the world is the mirror of what I'm experiencing with myself. So I'm finally feeling safe with me to be vulnerable and witness these things that I haven't even been willing to explore. I haven't been willing to see myself in the full picture, the fullness of what I came here to express and to be. Mm, yeah.
Yeah. And even during this process, who to invite and whatnot, I could notice the choice in there, that what do I want to experience? Do I want to experience someone who says yes? Or do I want to re-experience a rejection? And I could see that choice in my mind, like, well, I want this to happen, so I'm gonna follow the heartwarming feeling of reaching out to someone where it's there, the warmth and sense of safety. So it's so powerful when we can actually see the choice in the mind.
Yes.
When,
Absolutely. That's
yeah.
for me, one of my struggle was saying no. So
Oh,
I could say yes, and I could say yes while I was shaking and trembling and doing the thing, but saying no to what I didn't want in a loving way and not giving in and saying yes to that, and not doing the thing I always have done, saying no to this pattern, saying no to, so it was the no that was the hardest for me. So it's interesting that you say it's the yes for you. Mhm.
Yeah, that too. I mean, it depends on like what the topic is or what the situation is. Just, yeah, let the yes be yes and the no be no. The practice of that.
Yeah, my no was always like a fight. It was like I felt like I had to fight something to say no to it and like give that no its power when it was already mine. That power was already mine. So,
Mm.
mm.
Well, I love this introduction already. Perfect. So, my idea was to just start talking about your path, and if anything comes that I can um, link with or reflect on, then I will do that, and it will just be a conversation, and we'll see. We have a lot of shared and like common points on our path, so it will be exciting. So my first question would be then, from this point in time, like, because we are not talking about like sharing your path in a detailed way, that's not possible, but like from this point of time, what do you see, what were the main points that drew you to the path?
Well, I was reflecting on this recently and how the beginning of my healing journey, I was healing for everyone else. I was getting sober to be a better mother and to have better relationships. I was Uh, I got a job at a church just to have something to do because I was sober now and creating this new life, and then I'm working at this church, and it's a unity church, and I'm learning unity principles, which are metaphysical principles. And then all of a sudden I have a spontaneous spiritual awakening. I start seeing that time and space aren't real, and I start hearing a voice that's telling me that it's going to train me to see without my eyes and to hear without my ears. And I start traveling and flying over the country and
Oh,
seeing people doing things and energies moving. And I've never felt so alone and so powerful at the same time, because I didn't know anything about this stuff. I didn't know how energies worked. I had just started studying A Course in Miracles. So this happened for a few weeks, and then everything shut down. Everything completely shut down, and I put a big focus on other people again. And then but I had this question, it was a question of what really happened. What was that living in me for the next few years? And then I stayed with A Course in Miracles. I discovered John Mark Stroud and One Who Wakes, started
mhm.
watching Waking Up to the movies, and seeing that I can feel this truth, I can experience this truth everywhere in my life, just like a movie on a screen. And so I started doing that, and that's when I came across a Way of Mastery, and Way of Mastery has been my dedicated journey since about 2017. And I've been doing those practices and studies through Jeshua and meeting JM Hammer and going to retreats and learning Love's Breath and really discovering this relationship with God personally, this inside work that really started with quantum healing and learning the tools of quantum healing with Reverend Lynn Laborde. And learning from her, I first experienced quantum healing and feeling into this body that I didn't know had been screaming at me to pay attention and to listen and to stop numbing myself to all that it was trying to communicate. So as that relationship continued and I received these tools to be able to communicate with this body, to communicate with the energy that was moving through uh, emotions and thoughts and colors and sensations and through the breath and just all this movement that was happening that I was completely controlling. I was trying to control it and push everything down and make it what I thought it should be. But learning these tools, I wanted to play with them immediately. I wanted to give them to people, to watch others use them and unfold and hold that space. That was sacred to me, that time with someone who was willing to step in for and get naked and like really be vulnerable, not knowing anything that was about to happen. That was so exciting to me to step
Mm.
into that unknown. It was like riding a roller coaster. So that's been my joy ever since. That moment when someone sees something that they never knew was there, that they've never seen before, but they were observing it, the effects of it. They were observing their behavior. They were observing what they were calling into their life, not knowing that it was their power. It was them and what has been talking to them from inside that's been trying to get their attention by calling all these things to mirror it to them. So it's just so exciting. It's the opposite of everything I ever thought was true.
Yeah, it's stop being a victim and reclaiming the power within, right?
It's like a double layer too, as a but living this life as a female and and I grew up also in the South in America, and the Southern culture in America is about women playing their role.
Mm.
And so I had a large cloud of layers of um, duty and uh, and responsibility of the choices I made and what I was doing and what roles I played, that it took a lot of questioning to uncover those, and then to find that I didn't have to fight against what was before or how I saw things before, that it is just about, like you said, like claiming and standing in the power and seeing what it feels like and going, yeah, 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 I really like this. This feels good. And um, and giving myself permission to say, I want more of this. That was a big discovery for me because I took care of everyone else. It was all about everyone else and what they wanted. So then I have to like guess, right? I have to have this idea of what they want. And then I create some kind of movement toward that imagined desire, and I'm moving farther and farther away from my heart, from myself, from my desire. So it was so hard to discover what I truly wanted. That was just so foreign.
So it's like you weren't a priority for yourself.
Mhm.
And does it mean, do I understand it correctly, that you had had to, or you chose to play this role of the wife and mother too?
Yes,
Mm.
it was all my choice. It was all, and that's what I feel like all of this work, this spiritual work is about, is taking responsibility that and it's just recently actually that I realized I was enjoying it, this limitation. That was my joy. And by judging that and saying it wasn't what I wanted, it was something that happened to me that I was a victim of, and and that I had to force it to be different. Like all these ideas hid the fact that I was enjoying it the whole time.
Hmm.
And that was really hard to admit to myself that I enjoyed this limitation that was uncomfortable and painful, um and where I chose to hurt people, and I chose uh to make decisions that affected other people's lives. Um it was hard to admit that I enjoyed that.
Hmm. What do you see? What did you enjoy about it?
Well, it's not that I enjoyed it in the worldly sense. It's that I, as a soul, wanted that, and I kept it going because my joy was there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hidden to me that joy was present the whole time. And I thought that I had to get to joy by having some spiritual movement to get to the joy. But my joy was there the entire time. And that's kind of what I mean about enjoying it. It was my choice to judge those things and say that I didn't want them, and that limited the joy that was present even then.
Mm, yeah, and that's the deeper seeing and the honesty, the self-honesty, to see that when there's a limitation and I actually enjoy it. And you know what comes to my mind? Did you hear about Existential King? I read that book not that long ago, and actually it's just another approach to allowing everything. Like you can't love and you can't transcend what you haven't embraced and loved and accepted. And yes, this existential kink is about that too, to really see that, wow, actually I enjoy this. And then to really just own that and claim that. And then when it's allowed, all the feelings and the thoughts around it, then it
Yeah.
can start to shift.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's just a feeling. And it was me that was giving some quality, some meaning to that couldn't be joyful. And but that was only when I thought that I was that. I thought that I was those thoughts and those doings. I thought that that was me, and that labeled me somehow. But I was the one witnessing those things. I wasn't the one really doing them. And that's what I think John Mark Stroud's waking up to the movies, going into the Akash and witnessing our past lives that are playing like movies. And you have this over and over, this ability, you're building a muscle to step back, witness while feeling, letting everything be what it is,
Mm.
and not trying to make it something else for my own purposes. It is what it is. I'm the only one that can give meaning to it being right or wrong or good or bad, or it just is. So there's a
And not
power.
to judge, not
There's a
to
power
judge,
in
right?
that. Yeah, not to
Yeah.
judge it. That's where our power is in, can we really stand and welcome everything, experience everything, knowing that it doesn't change me and my identity, it doesn't change my value, my worth, it doesn't change anything about innately who I am, by feeling these things or witnessing these things or participating, what feels like participating in these things.
Yeah, I really loved movie analogs, the examples like the pure white screen and then all the images and shadows that are playing on the screen, and also the symbol of the actors and actresses. I mean, any good actor or actress, they don't just want to play in comedies, right? And everyone who goes to the movies, they really love a good evil character, like the bad ones. Those are the other icons, not just the saviors and all that. So even that is part of the play, because to be a savior, there has to be a villain, right? And
Well, yes, I was talking about this recently with someone that what I can feel is that when we create one thing in duality, we create its opposite. You can't
mhm.
help that. So we live in a dualistic universe at the moment. This is our lived reality. So we can't help but experience that. I don't, it baffles me why people are confused that they find the opposite of what they believe, because you can't you can't have a belief without having an opposite to that.
Yes, or to find that actually both coexist in our being,
Mhm.
and then to think that, oh, one is better than the other, to see that it's the same.
The
That's such
same.
a key.
Mhm. That's the and that until it's complete, until we complete that journey with that one idea, it's not complete in us. So the the completion comes from, like you were talking about before, like fully embracing and experiencing it as it is and not pushing against either one, but experiencing.
Mm.
Mhm.
I want to tell you about this. I've been having these conversations, and everyone I'm talking to brings up a little bit different things in this character, right? Like the activation is different. And in my conversation yesterday, I noticed this pattern that um, my guest, she was talking about one approach, one point of view, and I noticed in myself it wasn't really an intention to fight or argue, but there was more like it's almost like a compassion that I have to represent the other side of the coin too. You know what I mean? Like it has to be talked about also, because that's not the full picture. I don't know whether you know what I mean, but I think it's fascinating. Like, where does this come from? And I started to contemplate this, like, what can be underneath this compassion? Like, what would appear if I didn't feel this need that at first I have to represent the other side of the coin? Um, Yeah, I don't know whether something specific comes to my mind, but do you know what I mean? This pattern of. Um, I also heard this expression of being the contrarian, like when someone says something, and then you can be sure that they are going to talk about the other part of it.
Yeah, in America, we would call it playing the devil's advocate.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, playing the devil's advocate, I've heard it expressed as, like in spiritual circles, um, as uh, like a feeling of needing this completion, to see this complete idea, and wanting that so badly that you will create it in the moment. And that the and that's happening within you. So it's all happening within you, but do I give that power and space and importance, or do I fight against it? Like, am I making it real, or am I just feeling it, just breathing with it? Like you said, questioning it. What would be there if this wasn't there? What would take its place? What would happen if this wasn't here? And and in actuality, it's not there. It's an illusion. So there is something else there. And but you asking the question in this curious way can open that door. And that's kind of there's a fork in the road there. There's a, am I going to do the pattern and do the thing that I've always done and and fulfill this need, this like, and you kind of did it. You did like a kind of thing because you can feel it, that tense in your body, and you're like, oh.
Right.
So that's the clue. And then you watch, go, oh, I just held my breath. I'm feeling a need to complete this. And instead of just holding space for all that's happening for me right now, this person talking about something that I feel is incomplete and my experience of that. Um, that's interesting, especially that you're interviewing people and now you can't really have that experience without what you're doing, without opening the space to hear someone else's side, hear someone else's perspective, and then watching how you react to that. So, bravo.
Yeah, and like I guess that's the play of it, that we create the circumstances for these patterns to show up so I can choose again. And then the question is also what do we value? Because I um, receive messages from my quantum self, what I call from my future versions, regularly. And one of the messages I received, well, a couple of months ago was, it's not the question of worthiness, it's about what you value. And because our worthiness is not in question. And so many times we go into this questioning, do I deserve it? Am I good enough? All this stuff. And for
Mhm.
me, this message cuts this off completely and puts back the question to what it's really about. Like, what do I value? Why am I creating this or that?
Yeah.
And makes it conscious.
Yes, that's actually the one of the really big keys that I found missing for me in A Course in Miracles. I ended up reading a companion book called um, Journey Beyond Words, and it's a companion to A Course in Miracles, but there were two sections, I believe, like value one and value two, and it was all about valuing, and I went, that's it. That's the key. I could feel it immediately. What am I valuing? And
Mhm.
we're constantly being remade what we value. The there's moments where we're valuing, relationships and friendships and and like you're saying, like friends of the heart, and then sometimes we're valuing this inner communion with ourselves. And so whatever we're valuing in that moment is constantly being over like shifted, and we have to be letting go, constantly letting go of what we value, because that's how we made this. That's how we made this universe, is by valuing to experience separation. So it's we constantly are being asked to let go of what we value to have it remade for us. It's the way that I feel within
Mm-hmm.
me. Mhm.
Yeah, and because the pattern is still there for me, I have to bring it to completion if I'm gentle with myself. So the reason why I started to bring up this question, what do I
Yeah,
value? What do we value? Is because, for example, during this conversation or any conversations, if we truly value giving the other person, the other being in front of us, giving the space so they can really just say anything they want, then during that process, because I value this, I can just observe so many times when this pattern comes up, uh, like, oh, I wanna add my point of view, my reflection, my. But if this is valued more, like I wanna listen and give the space, then the energy of this devil's advocate can start to resolve, and
yeah,
then I will know when you are complete, because you you take a pause, right? Because you feel complete with what you wanted to say, and then I can see what will come up then out of that space. And I think that's a beautiful practice um, in everyday conversations too, because so many people are conversing in a way, constantly cutting each other off and wanting to say, like, and then this comes up for me about this or that. And it's not really a enjoyable conversation for me anymore. So I guess this is an answer for a deeper prayer. And I hope that now that we are talking about this, it will bring some illumination to others too.
yeah. Well, I heard it was actually at a retreat, a Way of Mastery retreat with JM, where he said the only value in like telling a story, giving our perspective is for us to hear ourselves saying that. Like it's it's to witness yourself telling the story. Like I can't bring you back to me 5 years old in my parents' living room. I can't really bring you there, right? But if am telling the story, it's really for me to see it differently, to hear it differently, to question why it's coming up for me. And so the other than someone has come to you and asked you a question, right? If someone asks you a question, you're answering the question. They are honestly asking. But if you're just like telling a story and you have not been asked to tell a story or asked a question, you're honestly speaking only for you. And
Right,
unless, like you said, you're valuing, oh, love me, love me, or see me this way, or you're putting some job on that person to do something for you. Um, yeah. So it's a good question. Why am I opening my mouth?
mm. Busted. Yeah,
I do it
wow.
all the time. I ask myself all the time. I will facilitate a Way of Mastery group and I'll go, "Ooh, yeah, I really wanted something from them when I said that." Yeah.
Mm.
And but it's about doing just that, busting yourself. It's not about catching other people in it. It's just not about that. It's about the relationship, the relationship of trust and honesty I have with myself. and why I'm
But
saying.
haven't you found also that if we are complete with these little selves, right?
Yeah.
Then we are getting kind of bored with them, and that's when we open up to something new. So that's why I'm also questioning this need, like when to cut it off, um, this need for completion, because that's the definition of not embracing it fully. Or I'm definitely going to contemplate this, what this means or how this shows up, and because I guess it has a place for it, and so many times the challenge is to dare to share ourselves, because that's what we started with, the vulnerability, and then so many people are constantly hiding behind the masks and the roles, not sharing their own experience. So it's a slippery slope, I guess.
Well, I think that's true. And it's funny that you're talking about completion, and you were kind of talking about completion before when you were talking about playing devil's advocate. There's something about completion for you,
Uh-huh.
um, uh, doing it and not doing it, or having it and not having it. So it's interesting you're talking about that. Um, that's what's coming to me. Um, and then what I'm also feeling is when I'm in that authentic journey that's mine, that's my authentic journey, then everything is for me. Even me is for me. I am for me. Everything is for me and for that journey. Um, and so uh, I'm not doing something to to try to make someone else have a moment or have a whatever. They're free. They create their own moments. They everything that they experience is repurposed for them. And I will feel that movement like you're talking about to speak or to support someone or what it comes from within me, almost like a not knowing why I'm doing it. It's a compulsion almost. It's like I'm compelled to do this thing. The opportunity shows up, um the motivation shows up, the everything I need to complete the task shows, like it just shows up. It's like a flow. And um that's so different than trying to figure things out or accomplish a task or and we will have tasks, we will have things that we feel we want to kind of, we can feel the ending coming, like I really want to experience this, and we'll move toward that thing, but it's really only the first step that's ours. It's the first step. It's not, the rest of it is, it belongs to that flow, that movement. So our willingness to take the first step toward what we can feel called to, and it's like a heart's desire is uncovered. That first step, that's the one that's ours.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow, I love it. It's exciting.
Yeah, I'm realizing how little I'm involved in this, really.
Mm.
um and it's just about me getting out of the way and saying what I want to feel. Like, oh, no matter what I'm experiencing, I want to feel joy. No matter what I'm experiencing, I want to feel peace. I want to feel gratitude. I want to feel powerful and confident. I want to feel uh, um, playful um, and I want to feel um, that movement, that connection within me all the time. That's what I really want all the time. It doesn't really matter what I'm doing necessarily. Um, Not to say that I don't want things. I want things that are in the physical and to experience them, but that wanting doesn't have the same desperate, lacking kind of feeling when I'm also joyful doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why it's so important to deepen in like how we feel and how we interpret those feelings, because so many times, for example, I thought that that's guidance, and then later, when I followed that thing I thought is guidance, I saw that, well, that was just an impulse or impulsivity.
Mhm.
And but that's how we learn, right? Like daring to move and play and experiment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's exactly the way I feel. I realized recently that there are some patterns that I was having a really hard time letting go of. And what I found was I was trying to avoid regret for these patterns that I was judging. So I kept them going so I wouldn't feel regret for the things that I did. Now I can just feel guilty about them. I can just.
You mean you didn't want to feel regret not doing something?
I didn't
Oh,
want to feel regret for what I had done, like
okay.
past regrets. So I wouldn't let go of patterns that didn't really feel good, that I was done with, because I didn't want to add to my past regrets. I
Oh,
mean,
I see. Mm.
it's just so like that's warped, that
Right.
idea.
Yeah.
And but that was what I was doing subconsciously. That was what I
Mm-hmm.
was creating by avoiding regret. I'm trying to avoid regret, so I stop putting things that I feel guilty about in the past. I mean, it's just the power of our choice to
But isn't it then, like again, the fear of not being able to handle the feelings that go with regret? Because so many times it's always about the feeling, like, oh God, can I handle feeling that? If I really allow clarity to come and say that I'm done with this, then we have to deal with all of that.
That's what it is. I kept regret alive by avoiding it. That's what all I was doing. I was because would feel it poking at me. It showed up. I went, no, 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 I'm too busy. No, 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 I've already dealt with that. No, 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 that's in the past. Whatever the reasoning, it doesn't really matter. I'm saying no to it. It's going to keep coming, and it's going to create in my uh, unwillingness to feel it, to be uncomfortable for a moment. Really, it's a moment that I'm avoiding, just
Mm.
welcoming it. And it creates this other struggle. And once I saw it, I went, this is nuts. Like, it's not that hard to hug regret. It's not even here, really. It's something that's already done. So, but my and it's so subtle. Some of these things are just so subtle that
Mhm.
it's easy to get busy with all that we think we're doing, all that we think is really important, what we're valuing. We value over what's here now, right now, uh, and calling me to it. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And I think it's also because, at least how I see, is that all these patterns are in packages, like, little presents, and we have to unwrap these pattern packages one by one. And if we start with one, then maybe there's a fear of what else do I have to face?
Mhm.
So it's really about bravery, and I think it's also about capacity.
Yeah.
For example, if there's a lot going on in our life, and one knows that there's so much physical stuff that we have to arrange or get to complete, right? And it would be just too overwhelming to really start looking at something. Because when it's time, then I think we do get on with it.
I think you're right. It's that something hits us, and our higher self knows what that needs to be, whether it's like you were saying before, boredom. Maybe I'm bored. Maybe I'm like, fuck this. Like, what's my motivation?
Mhm.
So, so the opportunity shows up to like push us gently push us toward that thing, like a nudge, like you're ready for this, you really are ready. And whether it's whatever emotion it takes to get us there, that's what'll show up lovingly. It lovingly shows up to encourage us to do what we know in our hearts we want. We really know it. It's even though it's uncomfortable, that we want the thing that's on the other side of that. And everything that shows up is my journey to totally fulfilling my desires. This is it. This is the path. And that's what we start to kind of get in line with, or we fight. It's happening anyway. It's going to happen either way, whether I fight it or whether I go with it. So it's that's our real choice. How do I want it to feel while I'm journeying?
Mm. So it all comes down to trust and faith.
Yeah,
Yeah.
imagine.
So, well, I think it's a beautiful way to wrap up our conversation, at least the first part. Or do you feel complete with this topic? And then we can continue.
Absolutely. That'd be beautiful. Love it.
Well, thank you so much for this first part. I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
And thank you everyone for listening. And we are very curious about your insights or thoughts on this. So just add a comment if you feel like it. And see you in the second part.